Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's masterclass. I'm Laura Hernandez, Marketing Manager at Nailed, and today I'll be joined by a great company culture expert, Dannique Blake. In this masterclass, Dannique will debunk myths about company culture and will share her effective hacks on improving these harmless habits that create toxic company cultures. The duration of this masterclass is about an hour. Dannique will speak for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A slot. We don't want you to be left with any doubts, so please make the most out of this masterclass. Ask questions. If you are watching us in broadcast, you can ask a question by clicking the Ask a Question button below. And if you're watching us on LinkedIn Live, just write your question in the chat. We are going to start soon. So for those who just joined, welcome to today's masterclass. I'm going to invite now Dannique to appear on the screen. But before we get started, let me introduce you a little bit more about her. Dannique is a company culture consultant and founder of Culture Insights. She's on a mission to save 1,000 startups founders time and money by making their employees happier, more motivated, and productive by 2025. Dannique walks startups organizations through their company culture, employee engagement, and performance enablement journey to support their brand, culture, and everyone's well-being. Welcome, Dannique. How are you?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
That's great. Are you ready, Dannique?
I am ready to go. I have made this really jam-packed with information and looking forward to everybody's questions.
That's great. So in that case, Dannique, the stage is yours. Ready when you are.
Brilliant. Good morning, everybody. I will share my presentation with you. We're going to start with a short video from someone who I believe really nailed it with moving a toxic company culture into an ultimate success story. So let's begin. I'm going to apologize for any technical hits today because I don't have anybody helping me. So just bear with me if anything goes wrong, but I will still be.
One of the keys to Apple is Apple's an incredibly collaborative company. And so you know how many committees we have at Apple?
No.
Zero. We have no committees.
No committees.
We are organized like a startup. One person's in charge of iPhone OS software. One person's in charge of Mac hardware. One person's in charge of iPhone hardware engineering. Another person's in charge of worldwide marketing. Another person's in charge of operations. We're organized like a startup. We're the biggest startup on the planet. And we all meet for 3 hours once a week, and we talk about everything we're doing, the whole business. And there's tremendous teamwork at the top of the company, which filters down to tremendous teamwork throughout the company. And teamwork is dependent on trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time, but trusting that they're going to come through with their parts. And that's what we do really well. And we're great at figuring out how to divide things up into these great teams that we have and all work on the same thing. Touch bases frequently, and bring it all together into a product. We do that really well. And so what I do all day is meet with teams of people and work on ideas and solve problems to make new products, to make new marketing programs, whatever it is.
And are people willing to tell you you're wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, other than snarky journalists. I mean, people that work for
we have wonderful arguments.
And do you win them all?
Oh, no, I wish I did. You can. If you want to hire great people and have them stay working for you, you have to let them make a lot of decisions, and you have to be run by ideas, not hierarchy. The best ideas have to win. So otherwise, good people don't stay.
But you must be more than a facilitator who runs meetings. You obviously contribute your own ideas.
I contribute ideas, sure. Why would I be there if I didn't?
So I hope you can all hear me. I know there were some comments about the stream echo, so I apologise for that. But I hope you can all hear me now. So good morning, good afternoon. I'm the founder of Cultured Insights, and I'm pro all things happiness at work. And I'm really excited to be with you here today. And before we get started, I'd like those of you who are able to type in the chat box or the say something nice box, I'd like you to type yes in the chat box if you have ever Googled how to deal with a toxic company culture or anything to that effect. So I'll give you some time because I know there's a bit of a delay here. So let me know if you have ever Googled how to deal with toxic company culture or anything. And you're not in trouble if you say yes. So I'm seeing some yeses pop up. Yes, I can see the yeses. I'm on the right track. I can see the yeses coming up. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to hold my hand up as well because I absolutely have Googled this a lot. And if you typed yes in the chat box, nobody could blame you. And here's why. Almost a third of employees leave because of toxic workplace culture. And these are statistics from the UK, and they pretty much echo across most of the Western world, so most of Europe and the US. And poor company cultures are costing UK businesses approximately 21 billion a year. I don't even know what I could buy with that, but it's a lot of money. So that Google search might be the thing that points you in the right direction and saves your company from experiencing mass burnout, increasing turnover, low team trust, and low performance, and maybe diversity and inclusion issues, and lots of other long-term effects of inaction of company culture challenges and issues. And really help you identify the point when toxic becomes the fabric of your organization. And that's not what any of us want. So we really want to identify when companies start to have these niggling issues. But just what is causing company cultures to become so bad that thousands of people a year see no other option but to leave the security of their job? And now I'm going to get interactive with you again. Is there anyone who can type in the say something nice box? And apologies to anyone watching via LinkedIn Live, I cannot see your comments, but anyone who is who can type in the say something nice, can you give me a reason why you think people leave because of toxic company cultures? What might be some of the things that occur? And again, I'll wait for your responses. And there are no wrong answers, and nobody will be reprimanded for giving their answers. So just throw such shouts and answers out to me. I'd like to see what your thoughts are before we move on. So we'll wait, and I'll give you mine. And your answers might be similar to where mine were when I was an employee. So I'll wait for anyone. Okay, so maybe you are where I was when I was a manager, because when I was a manager in a company, I didn't know. Oh, I've got an answer here. So Lauren, disrespectful interactions, top-down culture, sexist comments, discrimination. Yeah, no consequences happening after addressing Yeah, some toxic stuff. Yeah, these are all definitely things that happened or occurred that I felt like when I was a manager, I didn't know how to deal with. And I saw it as something that leaders needed to change, not something that I had the power to navigate or even manage myself. And I know there are lots of us in this room today who feel the same, because it can be really difficult to actually put your finger on what's wrong or why things are going wrong, especially when there are some people who seem to lose respect of the culture. And then there are some who are clinging on for dear life with their head just above the wave of burnout. And this is really hard for us to deal with. Thank you so much for your answers. I've got another answer. Managers putting their heads in the sand versus addressing head on. Yeah, that can be really difficult. And sometimes we just don't know what to do. We don't know how to deal with them, and we don't know where to pinpoint things. So thank you so much, Lauren. So this is me. I worked with many startup organizations, and it's great. I love startup culture. When you've got 3 or 4 like-minded people, all pretty identical people, who agree on most things, and you can easily embed ideas and also embed the idea of shared values and how shared values, everyone sharing a value, can help you maintain this culture of kumbaya-ness. And that was me. That's what I believed helped company culture, shared values, because I worked in startups and everyone agreed because we were a small team at first. And that was me for a while, until one of the startups I worked with scaled rapidly. And I thought, oh, all good. We have an impeccably written employee handbook. People will read that. And a list of aspirational shared values, and everyone's lovely and nice and friendly, and the culture's amazing. It's going to be great. And it was during the honeymoon period, where everyone was getting to know everybody and everybody agreed and we were all winning. But as soon as new people joined and settled in, and new ideas began to appear, and this is pre-watershed, so I won't say the actual words that I want to use, but poop started to hit the fan. And those values, those aspirational shared values, disappeared as fast as Usain Bolt on a running track. Because this new diverse personalities, attitudes, and thinking began to enter the company, and new opposing ideas and challenging questions about performance, conduct, behavior, and all the stuff that we like to avoid sometimes, they all started to arise. And all of a sudden, honesty wasn't a value anyone wanted to share. And it was at this point that I noticed that even nice people can exhibit habits that can slowly build uncomfortable workplace environments, and the type of environment that could cost a company, say, £21 billion a year. So are you all still with me? Has anyone experienced this? Is anyone else working in the startup environment and started off with everyone agreeing and then it slightly changed? Because that often happens, and sometimes we build these wonderful cultures when we are fresh in the company, and as they evolve, it slightly changes, and then we don't know how to manage the different people walking in. I'd love to hear your stories. Has anybody else experienced something similar? I'll give you some time because I know the short delay on here. Okay, I'll carry on until they pop through. So while there are many habits that we practice or that we start off with that we think are great, these habits can contribute to toxic culture. And today I'm going to share 3. And thank you, Olivia. Yes, I've experienced that at my old place, big on culture until we got too big. In my new place, we are in the honeymoon period and want to avoid this happening again. Yes, it's something that we can. Sometimes we think we've got the culture working and we don't realise that culture is something that we have to continue building and improving on, because as new personalities come into the organisation, the culture starts to take a different form and different shape, especially today where everybody has different sets of needs. So thank you so much, Olivia. So today I want to share with you 3 of the biggest harmless habits that, if left unchecked, can spiral and create work environments no one loves. And we want to love our work environment. We're there a lot, whether we're in the office or working from home. We want to enjoy what we're doing and who we're doing it with. Sophie, I had experienced change in a positive culture when there was a change of a manager who was overwhelmed. So different managers moving in and out can definitely change the culture as well, and we're definitely going to touch on that today. Thank you, Sophie. Okay, so before we move into this section where we're going to go into talk about the 3 habits, and then I'll give you some actionable tips and tricks and examples of how to avoid these habits from evolving into something a bit less harmless. I want to just let you know that you can ask questions at this time. We do have time for questions towards the end, but please do interact and ask questions, and I will try to answer them as we go. If I don't get the opportunity to answer them now, I will definitely pick them up at the end. So let's begin. So the first one, as we said, making changes too quickly. Who has experienced this? Because I definitely have. And it happens a lot because sometimes we just get really excited about an idea at work, and sometimes we talk to the people who are as equally excited with us, and we forget to talk to the people who might not share our enthusiasm straight away. And it happens so much. And here's an experience I've had. So a leader has an idea, usually a response to some sort of societal development or something that they feel will innovate the company, which is great. And then as the HR people managers or business ops, we start to strategize it. And maybe the idea is to attract more diversity or introduce a wellbeing program. And the expectation is you introduce this strategy, this new idea, and everyone will love it and be happy within insert time frame. Usually it's 3 months or something. And the idea is communicated maybe once or twice and then immediately action. Has anyone ever had that experience? Because that's been my experience quite a lot in the workplace. And I'll wait for your questions, but I'll carry on as we go. But what is often overlooked in this process is the emotional responses that this can trigger in people who have emotionally identified with the current company environment and the attitudes and behaviours that came with the existing culture. And because some people have different timeframes or different approaches to change, some people can become resistant and even resentful. And many of us as managers often forget that not everyone will have the same stickiness for change or new ideas immediately. And the variety of reactions to certain changes or ideas. And when we don't give enough thought to that, this can start to have a negative effect or negative impact on not only the business functions, but relationships across the organization if we haven't yet successfully built team affinity for the idea. Oh, thank you. We started receiving questions for Dannique. Take the opportunity to ask questions or doubts you have before the end of the masterclass. Thank you so much, team. I'm looking forward to your questions. So keep them coming, keep thinking, put them in as we go, and I will definitely respond to them at the end. But I think we have one question here. Miguel, hello Dannique, I'm loving the class. A question just popped up. How do you know when a habit or practice is impacting your team? So I'm going to tell you now how this habit and how you will identify how this habit is impacting your team. So I'll be right there with you when we're on this one. Thank you, Miguel, for that. So sometimes managers forget that everyone doesn't have the same stickiness for changes, and then you start to see some resistance and resentment for these new changes. So you will notice that some people will have resentment, some people will not jump on the idea, and some people will start to create maybe subcultures, or there'll be a divide within the team. And what we as managers need to understand is no idea or change will stick if we're not immediately thinking about building affinity within our teams. And we can do this by endorsing a community-first approach, especially when deciding to make monumental changes. Having a community approach steadily helps people to feel a sense of belonging within their team. Even if a change needs to be made quickly and some people are not completely ready for it, the team start to respect that everybody has a different idea or approach or viewpoint. And instead of the usual going away and not being able to talk about what their different ideas are, within teams that have an affinity for the ultimate goal of what this change will do for the company and them, they'll start to share their thoughts openly and find solutions or understanding. So creating a community where you can identify who are the early adopters. So the early adopters are usually the people who you all are early adopters of joining my masterclass. You saw the title and you were happy to join and attend, and hopefully you're all early adopters of my ideas. And you want to find the people like you and how you felt about the title and this masterclass, and you want to be able to identify how people are those sorts of people within your team. And sometimes we want to look outside of management and leadership, because having people who are outside of management and leadership can really help to create forums and focus groups about proposed change and ideas, and really help and support managers with delivering important information in different formats about each phase of a change or an idea. And that this can support and boost honest conversation and discovering how changes or new ideas will impact different people. Creating this type of community where more resistant team members can say, I don't know if I'm keen on this idea, I'm worried, or how does this benefit me, without the fear of retaliation, but opportunities to collaborate on solutions, really helps to steady the pace of changes by making them feel less haphazard and more inclusive of individual viewpoints. So I hope that all makes sense. Does anyone have any questions about that? So it's really thinking about how you can create this community where people are okay to have a little bit of discourse and maybe some cynicism, because, you know, we're not all going to have the same passion for an idea, but where we can have that discussion, it will actually help us to identify where there might be gaps missing, instead of running 500 miles with an idea and then hoping for the best and not having that conversation. Has anybody got any questions at this point about that one? Because I think it's a biggie in the workplace where we can all have ideas and not really have the discussion with the wider team. And I'll wait for questions to pop up. I'll keep going until they do. Okay, so here is another one. So like we said, number 2. And for this one, I'd like you to type in the chat box if you've ever thought, oh yes, annual performance appraisal time's coming. I love it. I love that. I can't wait. Type yes, and if I don't see a yes, I'll understand, because I don't think I would type yes in that box either. But I'll wait for you. Let's see if any yeses pop up. I don't think they are popping up. Yeah, no, it's very, very unlikely that a yes will pop up, because it's likely that you, as well as I know, that how employee appraisals and reviews are handled plays a vital role in the way your people feel about your company and your culture. Yet, we're still leaving performance conversations and feedback until appraisal meetings or when things become really critical. And what should be a celebration of achievements and a fair review of performance turns into poorly structured conversations that offers little value to either party. And without a formal structure in place, vital decisions and review outcomes quickly fall victim to the biases of the manager. And just to put it bluntly, they become unfair and a little chaotic. So is there anyone in the room today who enjoys appraisal time, feels like they've got it nailed, doesn't ever have an issue with trying to find the feedback and giving feedback in a timely manner? I'd really like to know, because this one is one that crops up quite often. And again, I will wait for people to pop their questions in, and we'll move, or answers, as we move along. So because sometimes we can miss the feedback as we go along, when we get to the appraisal time, it's often how a manager feels about an employee at that particular moment that becomes the basis of the outcome of a review or an appraisal. And when reviews are unplanned and performed on a whim, they tend to focus solely on an employee's personality. And even the most well-intended review starts to make people question just how objective they and all of your company's decision-making processes really are, which starts to impact the culture. And so what we really want to think about is building and developing a performance enablement strategy that supports timely and regular bi-directional feedback loops between managers, employees, and peers that celebrate the things that are going well and delivering the support or training required to address any issues, which leads up to the annual review, where these accomplishments can be discussed objectively during the meeting. And this will help people to feel a part of their own performance tracking and have more detailed conversations about what they need to improve. And this gives people a little bit more autonomy, which is what many people bring up when they are talking about what makes them leave companies and why they feel a company might be toxic, because they don't have that autonomy. And it's usually because we're not asking the right questions at the right time and leaving them right until the end. So people are not really tracking their own performance, and we're feeling pent up about what to talk about during those really meaty performance and appraisals. So does anyone have any questions at this point? Because we're coming up to number 3. So I'll wait. As always, I will wait for your questions. I'll carry on as we go. Okay, so I would like a last show of hands or yeses in the chat box if any of your company goals at this moment is to improve diversity and inclusion in some way at your company. And I'll wait for you to tell me, because it's currently mine. So I'd like to know how many of you in the room have that same company goal, is to improve diversity and inclusion in some way at your company. Yeah. The yeses are popping in. There's only one yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're all coming in. Okay. Good. That's good. I feel like I'm on the right track. The yeses are popping back in. You're all still here. Lauren, sort of. It gets talked about at hiring stage, but feels like stats rather than a plan. Okay, so this one is for you or anyone who feels like Laura. So, of course, diversity and inclusion are absolutely on most of our to-do lists. And why wouldn't they? You've got to be living on Mars if you haven't heard about how important this is in today's workplaces. But while improving opportunities for diversity and inclusion in the workplace is crucial, overthinking it can actually stifle the very outcomes you want to achieve. So this might be what you're currently experiencing, Laura. So we're asking questions like where to work, how to add colour, feminism, abilities and diverse thinking to our leadership tables. These are questions and conversations currently on the lips of most leaders right now. And who could blame them? And while these are great conversations and questions and thoughts to have in the current climate, one big question is often missed. What do you think that question is? Can anyone tell me? Maybe Laura knows. There's a couple of questions that are missed, but who can give me maybe something that we're missing when we're having these conversations or these topics arise at the workplace? And there are no wrong answers. They are all answers are good because we can talk about them. Well, I'll give you one whilst we're waiting. So we are missing probably two big questions. So the first one is, we forget to ask, what will make different people work efficiently once they get here? Because attracting new people is great, but actually sustaining and retaining them is probably the more tricky part. So it's almost like watering your garden and planting seeds at the right time. So I'm a fan of roses, and if I plant a rose now, it's likely they won't survive. And sometimes they look attractive, but if I'm not maintaining them, they won't survive and they won't look as pretty as I thought they would. So that's one question that we're really missing. And another thing that we're really forgetting is, and it's really fundamental actually, it's a fundamental part of improvement and change for most things. We're not really thinking about whether the infrastructure is equipped to support different needs. And when I say this, I don't mean it in a negative way, because even just thinking about different needs is great. Having those uber inclusive ideas like removing names from CVs is good, or instructing people to add pronouns to email signatures is supportive. And they are good ideas, and sometimes they are quick inclusion wins. But for some people, these ideas may not actually help. They may actually hinder efficiency and reduce inclusion, and also reduce that sense of belonging that we really want to create in the workplace, especially if they're not carried out in the right way that supports a broad range of diverse thinking, personalities and characteristics. So I work with a lot of tech companies, a lot of tech startups, and a variety of startup founders. And what I found is there is a mixture of different personalities, and these different people from all sorts of walks of life. They all produce their best work in different ways and at different times. Some people are 3 a.m. emailers, while some prefer not to even read an email until 10 a.m. And sometimes we're not really thinking about those two different worlds and how we can actually find a bridge to help both. Sometimes we're talking about we want to end hustle culture, but hustle culture might be the way somebody works best. And I've also had many people share that they weren't ready to share their pronouns or be involved in some of the initiatives happening at their company just yet, whilst they were thinking about where they are with their journeys. But they also felt that if they had told anyone in their company that they weren't ready, that managers might catch wind of this and that they wouldn't be viewed as favourable because they weren't supporting some of the managers' inclusive ideas. And by default, they were actually feeling excluded from their company. And this created some subcultures, and subcultures started forming, and resentment, and people not being completely honest and open with each other, or feeling like they couldn't be because they had a different idea or a different way of thinking or a different approach to some of these ideas. So yes, the idea of inclusion is so exciting, and I love what's happening, and I believe we all love what's happening. But inclusion at its core means being open and ready to listen to what helps different people find accessible ways to achieve goals and good results, not just the most popular and easy ways. It's a long game that requires really, truly celebrating differences. It also requires so much trust and bundles of communication. And if any of these things are missed, you're guaranteed to start seeing poor habits and performance issues arising within your team. So is there anyone who has any questions about that one? Because that's a really big, juicy one that often our excitement with the idea of increasing diversity and inclusion often misses some things. Is there anyone who has any questions on that one? Because that one is something that many of the people I work with need a bit more time to navigate. Let's move on whilst we're waiting for responses. So we're just going to go over the 3 things or 3 habits that really can impact whether we have a great time at work or whether our time at work starts to feel a little bit draining and exhausting for us. And improving these habits will take time. So don't worry if if they're not instant. We live in a world of instant messaging, instant social media, instant. So it's understandable that we want to see these things change immediately. But really taking the time to think about what habits we can change, especially these 3 we've spoken about today, can really help to improve some of the mechanics in our workplace and how we work as a team and build our team really inclusively to get that engagement and to get people working in a way that really is productive. Some of the ideas that I've shared with you today, they are so embedded in our routines that it will take a while before we can change them. And there's no shame in that. And that's why I help companies, because sometimes we can harbour these feelings. But there are practices and systems that we can develop to help fast track some of the changes and transform our behaviours. And one of them is to start having company-wide conversation about what aids efficiency across the organisation, and begin to distinguish different viewpoints of how your ecosystems could be improved to help different people perform best as part of a team as well as individually. If the goal is to lessen frustration and burnout and all of the other issues that relate to toxic company culture, conversations like these with your team are crucial and will demonstrate what you truly want to help your team discover and how you want them to problem solve together, rather than plaster over any niggling issues before they turn into cracks. So are there any questions? So that's the end of the presentation, and thank you so much for your time. I would love to take your questions. I think I have 3 right now, and I'm going to try and get the screen back.
Hi, Dannique. Great
Hello.
masterclass.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for those secret hacks. I'm sure they will definitely make a difference in any company. So if you are ready, we can start with the questions. And to the audience, really make the most of this masterclass. Ask anything you want to know to Dannique. We are here to help you. So let's go with the first one. So the first one with higher votes is from Javier. And he says, hi, Dannique, thank you for the talk. I have one question. What if I do something with the best intentions, but it seems to only impact people negatively?
So great question. Thank you so much, Javier. So this happens often. I often get the question, do my intentions matter if the impact is negative? And I always go back to the thought of, we often, if we take a car, we're taking a car ride, and our intention is to jump in a car, go to the grocery store, buy some groceries, make some food, come back home, no issue. But along the way, we end up in having a car accident with someone. Now that has impacted someone negatively. And if that happens every time we go out, we absolutely have to think about how, not what our intentions were, but the process. And we might have to change some bits in our processes. So the best thing we can do, if that happens every time and it always impacts our team negatively, is actually to think about what processes what steps we're taking along the process, and actually asking people in the team, can you tell me why this impacts you negatively? Can you tell me what outcomes you expected? Because these are the outcomes that I had expected, but I may have not considered. So it's really about asking people, and that feedback one, that number 2, is getting that feedback from people is really going to help you to maybe have a different outcome. Because if we keep doing it the same and getting the same results, the intention then changes to almost people feeling like you're not considering that this is impacting them negatively. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question.
That was great, Dannique. So we have a second question from Miguel. I think you went through it a little bit before, but in case you want to go deeper, I'll ask it again. So hello, Dannique. I'm loving the class. A question just popped up. How do you know when a habit or practice is impacting your culture?
So we often know because people often stop talking. So there will be people in the team who maybe were quite vocal, but then become quite quiet. And when people stop sharing their ideas and stop opening up, or probably asking for more anonymous, or wanting to share feedback anonymously, that's probably an indication that things aren't going quite well. And that's where we can start, maybe, as if we are managers, that's where we can start being more open and saying and sharing our thoughts about certain changes or ideas and how they've impacted the company, and asking people how those changes or ideas have impacted them.
Great. So we have a third question and last question. Again, if you have any question, now it's the time. We're going for the last one. And it's from Jose Ignacio. Hi, my question is, how do you effectively change a habit that everyone identifies with as a normal part of the company culture?
So you really want to first identify whether or not that habit is, like Javier's question, if everybody is experiencing this practice as negative, although it's part of the company culture, that's when we start to think about how we can change that. And that's when we start to have the conversations about what different outcomes we want and how we can reach those outcomes, and what processes or steps we can take to achieve them. So first of all, it's really getting that feedback from people and asking questions, even if they are scary. And I know lots of us find it really challenging to ask questions that may bring up people's resistance or resentment for something, but this is a really great opportunity to get that real feedback that's going to create more opportunities for change and improvement, and to get people on side and understanding why these changes are important.
Great. So that was it for the Q&A slot. We don't have any more questions. So Dannique, once again, thank you so much for this amazing masterclass. And to the audience, also, thank you for joining us today. In Native, we are organizing more masterclasses to help people and culture managers face the future of work and adapt to the changes to come. We are having the next one on the 21st October, and it will be given by Natal. And the topic will be co-creating employee experience with Agile HR. So if you're interested, we'll keep you posted via email and social media. So once again, Dannique, audience, thank you so much. Have a great day and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.